All right, guys, welcome to the Hungry for More call. I'm excited to have on Nat DiCarlo. Nat has been running virtual sales for about 6 months now, and he's been one of the top producers in the whole company over the last 6 months. So excited to have you on, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Nice to be here.
Yeah, man. So why don't you kind of just kick us off? Tell us a little bit about how you learned about Family First Life. What were you doing before? And then we'll kind of jump right into it.
Okay. Basically, I've been in financial services and had my own real estate development firm for a number of years. Got really backed up against the wall during the pandemic, and I had several multi-million-dollar real estate projects that just went sideways on me. And coming out of 2019-20, I was really, really backed up. So had a good friend here, Al Baumsteig, who you probably know from FFL Grit, known him for 30 years. And he convinced me that this would be a great place to try to build up a business and start my career, second phase of my career. Definitely a little older than most agents here at 51, but I'm excited to be here. It's definitely a great opportunity. I was convinced early on if I just followed the system and kind of watched what we were doing, I could build a business here. And so that's how I got started. And I came out early on. I started out in the field, started actually first week in the business. I actually took off from Southern California, which is my hometown, and went straight to North Carolina. I looked in the CRM and I saw tons of leads, and I thought, I'm gonna go ahead and go out there and I hopped on a plane, borrowed some money from some friends because I was pretty much flat broke, to be honest with you, and needed to start over. So I grabbed some leads, got an Airbnb, rented a car, and just started going at it. So I worked out in North Carolina for about a month, did okay. And then I came back to Southern California and ran in-home for another month or so, did okay there. And then I decided to go ahead and give North Carolina another try. So I flew back and did the exact same thing. And this was about October of last year. And I came back and started running in Southern California again. And it just was just getting tired of driving. Southern California is a big area. The counties are big. It's a lot of traffic, and I was convinced that there might be a different way for me. I was used to the phones throughout my career. I'm comfortable with them, and so Al gave me kind of a heads up that he was starting that, and he was pretty successful at it, and I just gave it a go. So starting in sort of November timeframe, Thanksgiving timeframe, I decided to do telesales, and I haven't been in a home since. So all my sales have been 100% virtual since then.
Got it. Okay. So tell us a little bit about your transition. So what does that look like? Because there's agents on here that have been in the field looking to transition. What did that transition for you look like, Nat?
Well, I tell you, I went cold turkey, to be honest with you. I literally just said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and give this a shot. I sort of worked into I guess an appointment structure that made sense for me, and it sort of evolved, but it happened pretty quickly. I found that if you just treat the in-home and the phone very similar in terms of the appointment structure, it sort of works itself out. There are some differences. I think you need to have them more succinct. You need to be a little bit more on point with the telesales in terms of how you run your appointments. But it's really no different. You're still gathering the same information. You're going through the inventory. You're doing the underwriting, and you're effectively trying to come up with a strategy for the client. So if you treat that the same and kind of look at it as the same as being in the home, I think you'll be pretty successful at it.
So Nat, I remember a few things about you. Number one, I remember when we had the annual convention, dude, you were on the phone like an animal, even during convention. I seen at one point I was walking in and I don't remember what you were posted up on, but you had your laptop, you had your phone.
The trash can.
Huh?
It was a trash can.
I thought it was a trash can, right? You're on the trash can, you're like, yeah, I'm writing up a deal. And I'm like, dude, this guy's an animal. So I know you've been helping a lot of families a month. What's your highest month in production since you've been virtual? How many families a month?
I think we just did 82 or something like that. 75 the month before, something like that. Yeah.
Dude, that's a lot of families, right? So 72, 8, like people that are on this now or going to be tuning in later. I mean, for them to even reach 40 a month virtually would change their life. 72 to 80 is like complete bananas for most people, right? So, So talk to us a little bit about this, Nat, because obviously you said a few months ago you didn't have a lot of money to your name, right? You
I
had
was
to
dead
borrow some
broke, to be
money.
honest with you. I was flat broke, tons and tons of debt. I
Okay.
was very successful all my life until the last 3 or 4 years, and I got completely wiped out. It's just as straight as I can be.
Okay. And I appreciate you being raw and genuine and sharing that. Now I'm assuming 6 months later, that's completely different.
Yeah, I mean, we're on pace here. I am reinvesting as much as I can back into the business. I'm not living a luxury lifestyle by any means. I'm trying to reinvest. I'm spending a lot of money on leads. I'm spending money on recruiting. So it's all going back into the business.
Okay. So financially it's changed, but talk to us because, I think, I'll be honest, man, I've struggled going from 100% in the field to 100% virtual. So I'd love to hear from you. What are some differences that you do on the phone? You said to be succinct and, kind of get to it a little bit faster. So talk to us what you've learned that's helped you perform at a higher level virtually.
I think that, how do I say this? I think that the biggest thing that I see when I'm trying to teach new agents, or what I see is a mistake, is people try to, they don't have enough conviction in what they're doing. And you've got to be in a position, in my opinion, to take a stand. And what I mean by that is I try to gather as much information as I can about the client in terms of their health and their income really quickly, so that I know before they even know what I'm going to recommend. I don't present options. I give them, I pretty much in my mind have a solution once I've figured out what they make and what their health issue is. And I'm going to go ahead and take a stand. I'm not going to give them 4 or 5 choices or even 3 choices. I'm going to give them one. And I'm pretty adamant about, that's my way or the highway, effectively. And if I miss the sale, I miss it. But I find for me, on the phone, I think if you're gonna start giving too many different proposals and too many things for these people to think about, you're going to lose them really quickly. And that's one thing I learned early on, was you just have to get to the point and you have to give them something solid. And if you give them too many options, you're going to lose them. It's just, that's what's different than in the home. In the home, you've got more flexibility to do all that, but you don't on telesales.
All right. So you're not even talking products. You're talking like you're choosing one product and one price point with a benefit, or are you saying, hey, I'm choosing one product and then here's the 3 price points?
So what I'm trying to do initially is, the first thing I do when I get on the phone is I start out by giving them some credibility. So I'm going to give them my name, I'm going to give them my phone number, I'm going to give them my license. I make them write it down. Okay, so I make them go get a pencil and write it down. The second thing I do is I go ahead and gather the information about them. I start out with their property address. I'm doing a lot of mortgage protection right now, but I do final expense as well. I'm going to go ahead and verify their property address, their date of birth. I'm going to, as quickly as I can, I'm going to get into their health. I'm going to understand what they've got, so I know right away if I'm doing term versus whole life and which carriers I can go to. But the most important thing that I think you can go is just understand their budget. And I don't go into detail about their budget. I don't think you have time on a telesales. I really don't care what their cell phone bill is. I just want to know what they're making, what their take home is, and if they have any other major expenses. Because once I know sort of what their income is, somebody told me, I think it was Al, told me once, that if you try to sell somebody more than 3 to 5 or 7% of their income, you're going to struggle. So if I know the guy's making $2,000 a month, I'm not going to show him $400 a month premium. I already know. I'm just not going to do that. So in my mind, I'm already sort of identifying what kind of plan I'm going to recommend and even what amount I'm going to recommend. I don't rarely ask people what kind of coverage, how much they want. I sort of just try to figure it out myself. I'll ask them general questions. What did you have in mind? Were you looking at some payment protection? Were you looking at paying off the whole balance? Were you looking at providing some money for your family? I'll ask them generally, but I'm not really getting into specifics about that. So I'll try to get them engaged in in the process. I'll start talking about their beneficiaries, what happens if something happens to them, who takes over. Before I give them any product, any prices, I'm already halfway through the application, to be fair. And oftentimes I'll go ahead and get them into the AmeriCo enrollment process, have them do the full HIPAA before I've even recommended a product, an amount, the amount of coverage, anything. I want to see where they stand before I give them anything. So for me, that works. I mean, it takes it takes that conviction level, because I've probably left some premium on the table by doing that, where you kind of come in with a recommendation and maybe they wanted more coverage. Maybe they could afford more, but I sort of know based on doing this enough, kind of what people can afford. So
Okay.
you're not going to see me offering, the A, B, and C package. I'm pretty much what I think is appropriate for them. And I'm coming out of the gate making that recommendation.
Okay. So you come in. So first off, mortgage protection, final expense is what you're running virtually. Mostly out of the CRM.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I do have a few counties locked down in terms of the mortgage protection, but honestly, I think about 85% of my revenue came from CRM leads.
And all phone, no Zoom, right?
No Zoom. I've never offered Zoom.
Okay. So straight phone calls. Are you setting appointments or are you doing one call closes?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. I do on the mortgage protection. I like to set appointments. On the final expense or internet leads, and I have run the internet leads. I don't do any appointments. I find if I can just close them right on the spot, it's better.
They're not working anyway. Most final expense internet, they're at home.
And it's a pretty straightforward conversation with mortgage. I think it's good to tee it up and have. What I do is I have a sheet that I use. I created my own inventory sheet, and I like to know their age. I like to know their mortgage balance. I like to know what their monthly payment is. I like to know if they have any major medical. And once I know that, I can design 4 or 5 different numbers and proposals in my mind. I write it down on my sheet before I even have them on the phone. I kind of have a general idea of where they're going to be. If they tell me they had a heart attack or stroke, I already know that I'm not going to start talking about a bunch of term policies because I know they're not going to qualify. So my whole presentation is from the start is going to be geared towards more of a equity protection, final expense type product. If that makes sense.
Okay. So you're coming in right away with credibility. So we talk about increased credibility. You do that right away. You're verifying info. You're asking health questions real quick. You're getting into budget. So you're getting into it pretty fast.
Got to be fast.
Got to be
very little rapport building here. Okay. That's the other thing I'll touch on. I think that, it's one thing to be likable and you want to be friendly, but you don't want to build that rapport until you are into the process with the application, in my opinion. Keep it business. You don't have time. These people are going to lose interest within 10 or 15 minutes. So the quicker you can just get to business, the better. And then once you're in the application, you start talking about their beneficiaries, you're filling out data, then you can start with the small talk, in my opinion, but not up front.
Now, are you asking the why question? Why did you fill this out? What are you looking for to figure out beneficiaries? You're not doing any of that either?
I do, but I do it up front. So I'll ask them to take down my information. Then I'm going to go in and verify their property and their age and all that. And then I'm going to say something like, so tell me exactly what you were looking for here when you filled this out. What was it that you were looking into? Now, if it's a mortgage lead, I might say, were you looking for some payment protection or were you hoping to get some of this balance paid down? And I'll just let them tell me what they were looking for. If it's final expense, I might say, were you looking at, increasing some burial and funeral costs, or did you want to leave some money to your family? Just give me a little more information about what you were looking for. But I'm not going to really, I'm not really digging that deep, to be honest with you. I don't find it to be necessary for me. That I sort of know what they need and based on what they're telling me. If I were in home, I probably would dig a little deeper. But I don't think you can do that really effectively on telesales. I think you're going to lose people pretty quickly.
Okay. So really what I'm hearing you say is you're asking them the question, but you're also you're giving them an option, right? Where you're looking to pay this whole thing off or just, have some payment protection, right? So you're kind of leading them so that way they can at least kind of guide you on what you're looking at.
The reason I do that is because I'd say 60 to 70% of my mortgage leads don't qualify for term anyway, right? So I'm having to pivot to a equity protection payment plan and sell them a whole life policy, maybe supplement it with an accidental. So I want to plant that seed in their head right in the beginning. I don't ever say, oh, you want to pay this whole balance off. Well, I already know they probably not going to get that kind of coverage or they're not going to be able to afford it. So I'm trying to plant the seeds that there's other options here other than just getting this whole mortgage paid down.
Makes sense. Okay. So now, all right, you're doing all this. You're finding one option, which is very different than what most people are doing, including myself, right? How are you closing them, right? So you present one option. What's your close sound like then?
Well, I guess it depends on if it's a term or a younger person or an older person. I think the hardest sale in this business is somebody that's, 60 to 65, even 70, that they got a $300,000 mortgage and they're just not going to qualify. So you're going to have to try to sell them on a $20,000 or $30,000 whole life policy. It's a difficult sell, but what I do is I explain them the situation, and I'm upfront with them. I say you're just not going to qualify, and what most of my clients do is the following: they put a policy in place that gives their family some time to take care of that mortgage. If you're under 70, I'm going to go ahead and recommend that you take the accidental guaranteed advantage plan to make sure you do have that larger payment in case something happens to you. Fortunately for me, my father died at 69, so I can be straight with people and say it's real. I've seen it in my family. People pass it from accidental death all the time. Don't discount it. So I definitely add that into the portfolio mix. In terms of the close, I'm basically going to say, okay, and if I've gone through the HIPAA, which I try to do, is I'm going to come back and say we've been sort of pre-approved now with one of our top tier carriers, and based on what you're telling me with your income and your payment, I'm recommending that you take, X 20,000 of coverage or 10,000 of coverage, and here's the price. I might say, we can get you 10 or we can get you 20. Here's the prices. Which one might fit better into your budget? I might give them that choice, but I'm not giving them too many options on carriers or different programs. It's basically down to, okay, we're ready to submit the application. Are you comfortable with 15,000 or 20,000? I'm gonna go ahead and get that submitted for us, and then I'm working right through it from there. I lost you.
No, you're here. I accidentally muted you, so that makes sense. Yeah, I think we do that too, right? Is most of our agents are going to narrow down the carrier and then figure out, the amount, right? I know most of the time we're teaching, here's 3 options. Which one works better for you? Doing 2 options works too.
Nothing wrong. I think for final expense, that probably makes a little bit more sense. It's a more narrow type of product, and they're just looking for some basic coverage. But with mortgages and stuff, it's a little more complicated depending on the situation.
So tell us what are some word tracks you use in the home? What are some things you do that might be unique to you that others can learn from? Whether it's building credibility, whether it's asking questions about their health, or even tying, using tie down lines or closing the sale. What are some things that you do, some Nat-isms, if you will, that you can share with the team?
Oh, I don't know if there's anything specific, but I mean, I just keep it very, very simple. Like, for example, if I'm going to ask them, about their health, I'm not going to get real detail. I'm going to say something like, how's your health? Do you have any major conditions like stroke, cancer, heart attack, anything like that? No, I'm good. All right. You taking any kind of preventative stuff, anything for high blood sugar, cholesterol, anything going on that you're doing? Any kind of pain medication you're taking for pain or anxiety, sleep aid? I'm not really drilling too deep unless, they tell me something that I'm not aware of, and I got to really dig into the prescriptions. And I will get into the prescriptions, but I'm not going that deep initially. So I keep it very, very conversational and very high level. Same thing with the income. I think people struggle asking people about their budget, but I just say something like, hey, so are you working or retired? Oh, you're retired. Okay, great. You must be on some Social Security, or you're getting a pension. Great. Just give me a ballpark. What do you generate monthly? You bring it home, what you take home? I don't need an exact figure, just a ballpark take home. And I just keep it very, very loose. I found that some of the training, some people, they want to get into too much. Hey, can you tell me what your cell phone bill is? Can you tell me what your car bill is? I mean, people start to get a little like you're prying a little bit too much, in my opinion. Now, it's important to know the budget, but I think you can do it in a way. Hey, what's your ballpark income? Hey, are there any other major expenses we should consider in this program other than your house payment? Nah, I might have a car payment, or I have this. Okay, great. So you have a general idea of what they're making. I think if you pry too much further than that on the phone, people start thinking you're just weird. You can definitely do that in the home, but I think you struggle doing that on the phone.
Okay.
In terms of I can't think of anything else specific. I mean, in terms of closing, I'm just going to say, something along the lines of, hey, it looks like we've been pre-approved at this point with our carriers. I won't know for sure until we formally submit the application. I'm going to need a few bits more information from you. If we could get you covered today, who might be your beneficiary, just something very simple like that. And I think in terms of the biggest hurdles are going to be your Social Security and your banking. No question. Those are the hurdles.
So let's role play that. Oh, why do you need my Social Security?
Honestly, there's just really no way that this insurance carrier is going to check to know who you are. I mean, there's nothing I can do. If you're not willing to give me your Social Security, there's no way I can get you insurance. And I just let them tell me from there. And then if they keep going, I'm going to say, well, what's your concern? Well, I got identity fraud, theft, and I don't know who you are. Okay, let me go ahead and email you my license and some information about my company. You're more than welcome to look me up. I'm going to send you some information about the carriers that I'm considering, and I'm going to send you information about the company that I work for. You can look us up. Will that give you some comfort? And 9 times out of 10, that works. If they're not going to give it to me, they're not going to give it to me, and I just move on.
Okay.
In terms of the banking, similar. Why do you need that? Well, the insurance company wants to get paid. So in order for you to get the coverage, and if you get approved, they're going to start taking your monthly premium. They need to know that you have a valid banking account. If you're not willing to give it to us, there's no way that we can put the insurance in place for you. I'm sorry. And I just leave it at that. I mean, I'm not gonna overplay it. I think you got to downplay it at anything.
Yeah, I agree. I think less is more. I think a lot of times new agents, they think that they have to give more information when a client's, resisting, right? And I think it's simple as you. It's like, hey, if you don't want to give me this information, I can't help you, right? Like, it's as simple as that.
Pretty much how I tell it to them. I make it sound like I'm putting it back on them. Like, well, look, you wanted the coverage, and there's just nothing else I can do. So we can either hang up the phone or we can give you the information.
Yeah,
pretty much where we're at.
So let me ask you this: in your approach with you doing virtual, what percentage of potential sales would you think you lost just like that?
I can't believe it'd be more than 5% maximum. To be honest,
because most times they're already at the point where they made the decision. They know they're playing hardball for whatever reason, right?
Yeah, because I try to get the social up early on in the conversation. I'm not going to get too far into the meeting unless I've got that information, because I'm not going to waste my time. So that's why I like going through the HIPAA as soon as I can and make sure I get that social. I feel like if I get the social, my chances of, if I get through that, my chances of the sale going up dramatically. So I think we lose more sales because, at least in my opinion, is because they just don't get as much coverage as they were hoping for in their budget. It's not because of the banking.
And then you're leading with Americo almost all the time, I assume?
There's a situation, if it's a COPD, the usual, if it's another carrier, or if they don't have an email or a text, they're not very savvy with that, I might use an Aetna or something. But I like to use, I don't like the Aetna application because, in my opinion, if it's too easy for you to do, where they're not committed, like I lose more policies on Aetna than I do on America, because I think once I've got them on either an email or this new text signature, at least they're doing something to feel like there's an actual application in process. Whereas, I think the Aetna is sometimes a little too easy, and they're not 100% sure they're even applying or if they got something real. So my preference is to go through the full America if I can, before I even give them a recommendation.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let me ask you this, because I think new agents struggle with this, right? So you put the client through the Americo HIPAA process and they get declined.
Yep.
Okay. What are you telling the customer at that point?
I don't tell them they've been declined. I say, well, it looks like there's a little bit of an issue here. My team is recommending that we pivot to another carrier and give us a second chance, make sure we can get you covered. So I'm going to go ahead and submit with a couple different carriers here. So by that point, they've already got an application in with America that I know has been declined. So I'm probably going to go to either Aetna or one of the others, and I'm not going to say they've been declined. What I will do is go ahead and submit the other one, make sure we can get them approved, and then if they do get approved with the second carrier, I may, I'll circle back and say, hey, we had another app in that got declined, but no worries, we got you covered. But I'm not going into the decline into great deal.
Yeah, and I think that's key, guys, right? So if you come across, so number one, if you're doing virtual sales, you should be using America's HIPAA every time, because this is going to tell you, are they even eligible for a term? Are they eligible for a whole life, whatever? That's number one. Number two, if you know they're not eligible for an Americo term, more than likely they're not going to be eligible for almost any term. In rare instances, they may, but I think the key to that, and a lot of new agents struggle with this, is they think they have to communicate the decline. Yeah. And I always say, don't do that. Just, you don't even have to say anything other than, okay, it looks like I found which carriers are going to be best for you, right? Because they don't know what's come back. They don't know that they got a decline. And that, how often, maybe you've done this in the past where you've communicated a decline and now the customer's pissed. They don't want to do anything. Well, tell me what do you want to know?
It puts a bad tone in it. Yeah, it leaves a bad taste. So I prefer just to go, hey, listen, my team, based on what we're seeing here, we want to go ahead and get you with a couple different carriers. And then I just go right into the next application and start it up, whoever that is, whether it's Aetna or Amicable or whatever. I'm going right into it, and I haven't told them anything about the decline.
Perfect. All right. So here's a thing that I haven't asked you yet, which I think is going to be huge for just about everybody watching now and that are going to watch the replay, right? So you're helping a lot of families a month, 70, 80 families a month, ton of coverage being put in place. Okay. Nat, about how much are you spending in leads per week?
I'm spending at least 3,000 a week and probably closer to 4,500 depending on the week.
Okay. So 3 times 4, at least 12 grand, maybe 15 grand a month in leads, but you're also helping 75 plus families a month.
Correct.
Okay.
It's just math. It's
just math. I know, but some people are not good at math. So we got to break it down here, right? You know what I mean? So that's that. Now, let me ask you this. How many appointments are you either scheduling or presentations are you having per week?
I have to, in my opinion, I got to have over 35 and preferably 45 minimum.
Okay. So 35 to 45.
To do those numbers. I mean, obviously, if you want to, you want to do 20 families, then I don't think you need to run that many. But to do the kind of volume I'm trying to do, you got to be up there.
So guys, here's the difference, right? A lot of you that are watching now are going to watch this later, and you're like, I can't get virtual to work. Well, you can if you're running at a high volume, right? Like when you're doing this over the phone, you have to your activity level has to go up, because you can probably help as many families with probably 25 to 30 in-home presentations compared to 35 to 45 virtual presentations. So now, does everybody have $3 grand a month or a week to spend in leads? No, we realize that. And clearly Nat didn't have that when he started either, right?
Not at all.
And so the key to it is how do you build yourself up? So let me ask you that question, Nat. So how did you build yourself up to that? Because you didn't have that money when you started. So what did you do to get there? And then what did that transition look like for agents that are looking to duplicate what you've done?
Well, you just have to commit to taking whatever profitability you get off your first leads. And anytime you're making sales, you got to reinvest it there. I mean, there were times where I literally wasn't, let's just say this. There were things I could have been putting that money to that would have helped me survive that I chose to put into leads. That's paid off, and it continues to pay off. But whether it's your car payment or your mortgage payment or whatever, you've got to put that stuff off in the beginning to get yourself a little cushion. But I'm not going to lie to you, no matter how much you're doing here, every time I go spend money on leads, I pucker up. It's just natural. There's no easy answer there. But the reality is I've got this down to where I know the math. And once you get it down and you know the math, then it's a function of how much do you really want to put in terms of time. That's the second component. Everybody says to me, well, how are you doing this kind of, this much? And I said, well, it's leads and it's time. I don't think people are putting in the same time I am. So I'm working 7 days a week, and there is no downtime right now. I've got kind of a mission in mind and what I want to do. And until I get there, I've got to work. So there is no secret bullet. It's just leads and time. And then I think some people will need to get a little better at the presentation and telesales, but once you get that down, it's not that difficult.
Yeah, and I think that's key, man. Like, you were in a position that it sounds like you had to make some drastic changes, right? Because your business fell on its face for whatever reasons they were. But, and I think there comes a point where everyone in their career and their journey that they've experienced enough pain, their backs against the wall, that they have to do something different. And it's a matter of time. It's a matter of reinvestment. And Nat, I was just like you, man. When I came over here, my credit card bills were racking up, and
Yeah,
I could use that money to pay my credit card bills, but then I'm like, I'm not going to have any more money for leads. So I'm like, what do I do? And I just put off my credit card bills, and I just kept buying leads till it started to overflow in terms of
yeah,
my
I don't
funds.
think there was anybody. I mean, everybody's got their own situation, but I was as destitute as you could possibly be financially. So if anything, if anybody's watching and wants to know if they can turn it around, they can. And this business is amazing to be able to do that. I've never seen anything like it in all my years where you can actually, you know, start from scratch and build it up pretty quickly. But it does take a lot of work, takes a lot of time, and you just got to be focused and dedicated to making those purchases on your lead budget every week. I buy leads every couple of days. I'm not really a dial daily. I mean, it's pretty much my schedule's every day, and wherever I can pick up leads, I will. And it's just the way that the nature of the business.
Awesome, man. If you can leave us with one last tip that will help agents help more families virtually, what would that be?
Well, above and beyond buying more leads, which we know is the key, it's having conviction on the presentation. Okay? Don't be wishy-washy with these people. They want you to tell them they want your best recommendation. They're calling you for advice. They don't know what to do. Don't give them too many choices. Tell them what you think is best for them, and be convicted about it. I think you'll have a lot more success than being kind of wishy-washy with it. If that makes sense.
Makes total sense, man. The person that is more convicted in a conversation is usually the one that wins that conversation. And I know it's not a win. It's not something that's required to win in that sense, but that person with conviction is the one that's usually going to be able to influence the other person. So 100% agree.
Correct.
Well, Nat, hey man, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day, pouring into the team, and we really appreciate you and love seeing your success. We're rooting for you, brother.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Good luck to everybody.
You got it, man.
All right. Take care.